Greetings world, I am Shakespeare. I bring you something very interesting I found on the dark web. These are not my own words but feel it should be shared. Please also share and spread the word. Firstly, I am part of no group, I am part of no cult, I am not a leader nor do I follow. I am one. I am anonymous. We are all anonymous. We are all one. In my opinion, the Matrix films provide the best metaphor our society has for understanding why organized evil and oppression are allowed to exist, and so I will use it for this purpose. While my interpretation isn't the only possible one, I believe it to be valid, comprehensive, and most importantly, illustrative of the message I am trying to convey. So let's begin by discussing what the Matrix is not. The Matrix is not the physical world. As far as I'm concerned, the physical world is actually real and is in fact governed ceaselessly by the laws of physics. Conversely, the Matrix is also not the Internet, despite what many seem to believe. The Matrix spans and transcends both these worlds. It has existed since the dawn of civilization, and it will continue to exist until its collapse. So then, what is it? Well, that's complicated. Much like in the movie, it's nearly impossible to convey the size and scope of the Matrix to someone who doesn't already see it for what it is. However, unlike the movie, I believe it is an ethical imperative to try to convey it in a literal sense, even to those who are so dependent upon the Matrix that they would fight to protect it. At worst, they won't understand or believe and will continue on about their business. In a sense, I believe Cypher was right to resent Morpheus for what he did, because Morpheus is the social structure that subordinates humanity to its will. It is the machinery of society that exists solely to perpetuate itself, its influence, and its power independent of any human need. It insulates us from each other and ourselves through deception, and essentially transforms us into servile engines of economic and political output, power. The machines that live off this power are institutions, large corporations, governments, schools, religious institutions, and even non-profit orgs. Every institution will reach a point in its existence where its primary function becomes self-preservation and perpetuation, instead of serving human need. At this point it becomes a machine of the Matrix. For example, when they become machines, governments cease to serve people and instead seek to extend their power over them. Corporations prioritize increasing shareholder value over producing quality products or otherwise serving the public good. Schools view students as a means and not an end. Religious organizations equate membership with salvation, and actively oppose other teachings and even independent practice, and nonprofits and charities spend more budget on fundraising activity than on their original focus. Inevitably, all large institutions eventually become machines. They become too big for humanity. In addition to the independent self-perpetuating machines that write most of our paychecks, the Matrix has several major cooperative and more actively sinister groups of machines subsisting off of its power and directly contributing to the structure of the Matrix itself. These groups are the military-industrial complex, the political-industrial complex, the prison-industrial complex, the surveillance-industrial complex, the media-industrial complex, the academic-industrial complex, the agricultural-industrial complex, the medical-industrial complex, and the major religious organizations, not to be confused with actual religions. Many religious organizations have abandoned the underlying principles of the religions they claim to represent. All machines in these groups either actively oppress humanity, or enable the oppression to persist. It is through their combined efforts that the Matrix takes on some of its more distasteful qualities. Do you ever wonder if Aristotle and Plato dedicated their lives to something they don't really believe or tested? They had a school, a philosopher's school. 2,300 years ago, and still today we have to learn it at the universities. But why? If the things they said back then were just thought forms without a deeper truth or meaning, why do we need to go so far back? How many opinions are there? Why are the opinions of them so important? That was my question. If you then take Karl Marx, his book Das Kapital, And you see his vision completely clashes with the visions of the ancient philosophers, not just little differences in opinion but a way of thinking. I call it a form of dehumanization, all in the name of capital. Without shame. I wonder how this can be. Because truth can be found in ancient philosophy, I believe in the laws concerning property and wealth that Aristotle pointed out very strictly in his works. Why? Because the people he worked with were onto something. You don't do the things they did if it's all without meaning. With the invention of money, those laws could be altered because the economy was since then not a trade of goods but an economy based on money. Karl Marx was the front man of a shift. Money going to the digital age. Therefore maybe we should take Marx and add IT with the theory to make it up to date. Marx it or Matrix. He comes with the claim that a worker should earn just enough to stay healthy, so that he can produce each day the same. In other words, the only reason we give you money is to stay working for us. Producing. You can't earn too much money because then you get lazy, just enough to see you show up each day, with the amount of sleep you need for your energy level to produce as much as possible. Nice philosophy, he? Full of ethics and deep human values. Bentham with his utilitarianism philosophy comes into play. Maybe we can do again a little game because that's the trademark of certain organizations. Riddles and things hidden in plain sight. Utilitarianism equals Illuminati-arism, or how would you yourself name the philosophy based on the Illuminati? Okay, that's all speculation, but look at the death of Aristotle and combine it with the date of death of Bentham, the inventor of utilitarianism. Then we have 322 and 1832. Bentham's body was preserved, his head was mummified but his body had to exist of bones, so no mummification. His head was missing. Why is that weird and why all these facts? Because if you go to Skull and Bones you see only two dates, 322 and 1832, a head and bones. When you study philosophy your book begins with 322 and ends with 1832, or the other way around. When you put these two philosophers together they don't mean much for each other, but when you look deeper, you will see that utilitarianism combined with Aristotle and Marx and money in the form of a digital current, provides the perfect blend to respect the natural laws of ancient philosophers by a form of energy transfer to money. Money you can give away as a loan, you can invest it. By doing this you don't have a big capital or any of the things that ancient philosophers protested against concerning natural laws. I don't know if having too much wealth/capital has a negative impact on life. But Aristotle was convinced. The question is therefore, did Marx knew that he could pass the ancient philosophers with what he was writing? Strange thing to point to is the formula Marx used in his book MCM and CMC. Some people say it's intentionally this formula to point at something else. Personally I think physics. Again, something hidden in plain sight in the form of a joke to the initiates. This was a tip someone gave me. And indeed that is the humor of people that know things we don't. They love it when you see it right in front of you but you have no idea. Utilitarianism stands for a society with the most amount of happiness. The goal is thus the most amount of happiness in order to base your decisions and to say whether a decision is ethically and/or morally correct. So when the most amount of happiness is achieved then ethics or morals are respected. It does not matter how many people are involved and how the happiness is divided between the people. Looks great, right? But if 20 people are just okay and one person is super happy, and this person is so happy that the sum total of happiness is bigger than when all 21 are all just fine, then this is ethically correct and morally a right thing to do. It's about sacrifice. It is allowed that some people have to sacrifice themselves as long as the total amount of happiness is the biggest. So who are these people who have to sacrifice themselves and how many people are we talking about? Do they know it about themselves? Can you see that people who are addicted to status, property, and extravagance? The people who get the feeling that they are better than all the rest, that they own the world, that those people do reach a higher state of happiness compared to people that don't really care about a lot of property/money and do care about other people instead of own interest? Own interest is, by the way, the hidden hand from Adam Smith, hidden or invisible hand. But what does Aristotle say about all this? No man can have more than a certain amount of property/possession/wealth. He is very strict and clear about these rules in his works. So do we have a problem? If the economy was based on exchange of goods, there was indeed a problem, but Karl Marx and the banking system provide the solution. You take your money and you hand it out as a loan, so you actually don't have a whole lot of capital, but each month you get a certain amount that covers your big luxurious expenses. This way you escape Aristotle and Plato's advice on how life works and the laws of nature on the division of property between the amount of people on earth. This way you escape the possible negative force when having too much, and you use Marx's theory on how to fully exploit your workers for your own advantage. Meantime you give those workers loans so you don't break the natural laws ancient philosophers talk about. And above all, these loans even give you more money because of the interest. As if Marx's exploitation of workers isn't enough. They also have to pay interest on loans. But don't worry, the utilitarianism way of life solves the problem. It's all fucking ethical and morally tolerable and accepted. 322-1832 Aristotle and Bentham. And all this is possible because of contracts. Without legal agreement this would not exist. No loans, no investments, no labor contracts. The rule of law and order is indeed very important. If money controls workers and money controls the energy of the workers, then money controls energy. If the stock market is based on money and money controls the workers, then who is the stock? A good name, right? Funny, right? Winky face. Besides, the hidden hand has a far more important role to play than generally accepted. But they don't give us all the information. This whole text seems like a mockery because it is a mockery. Why? Because that's the manner they speak to us, amusement because of our lack of knowledge. The second reason is because the person who went back into Plato's cave was being mocked at. When people who know more than you mock you with riddles you don't understand, make sure that they think you are a really dumbass. The riddles will become much more easy because they think you're a stupid fa degree a degree k. Keep track of things, connect dots, and see where the arrow points. By reading books random on good faith we will not know the truth but can only speculate. There are people who do know. When you meet people who treat you this way, you can become mad or you can play the game. Smart people, they mock them with harder riddles. So be a smart man, play a stupid muppet for the masters, deceive them, manipulate them, study psychology, take the information, use the information and let them become the puppets while thinking they are still the masters. Because that's what they have done and still are doing to us. And please don't ride a goat, take the bus.